Hello, YouTube. Hi, everybody. Sorry for the late start. It is the 15th of July, and this is Stratosphere Studio. I'm glad to be not talking about politics for an hour or two. But I do have something that got us off to a very late start today. Been talking about doing DCS for the longest time, and so earlier today I recorded I fought a one-on-one dogfight out over the South China Sea with me and an F-18 Super Hornet and Chinese J-11, which is their flanker with an ace setting. And when I got that 5-minute dogfight recorded on DCS, I was able to do the playback a number of different times, and then I video recorded it from 12 different camera angles, which is just way too many. But that's what I ended up doing. So I don't have a finished product to show you, but I will by next week. And I thought, actually, you know what? That's not a bad segue for a discussion topic that we haven't had much to do really with on Stratosphere Studio, but it's so important part of filmmaking and storytelling that I thought this would be a good segue to kind of get into it. And that is editing. So the miracle of editing is, well, at the risk of sounding like our vice president, the miracle of editing is miraculous. It's a miraculous thing to see editing because it creates a effect that's much like a miracle. So into this gigantic bin, what I'm going to show you here is garbage. Garbage for you this week. It wouldn't take me anything like a week. I could probably get this into pretty passable shape in about 3 or 4 hours, but I just finished recording it in order to get the garbage here on time. So by next Monday, it won't be garbage. Next Monday it'll be finished, so it'll give you a nice chance to see it before and after. So basically what happened was I had 13 different camera angles of this dogfight. I just flew the dogfight, and then every time I'd replay the dogfight, this is how it works in DCS, I would take a different camera angle. Some of them are obvious. One of them is just the inside of the cockpit following the plane around. The others, the outside of the plane. Some of them are flybys. Some of them are, but I had lots and lots and lots of moving angles of the outside of the airplane. And the reason what you're about to see is garbage is because I took this thing into Premiere Pro, nested it, and then did multicam. And so basically what I'm looking at is I've got one little bar on the timeline, and I've got like 13 different cameras, and they're all kind of updating in real time. 13 cameras, 4K each. That's very hard load on the new computer, which handled it pretty well. And so what I'm trying to do as a beginning is to do what we in the business call a line cut. Now, a line cut with a good live director can be very close to the finished product. In other words, a typical line cut, let's say you've got, let's just make it real simple. On a line cut, you might have a two-shot of two people having an interview, got a close-up of one guy, close-up of the other guy. The director's in the booth. We start rolling tape. Camera 1 is recording to one tape recorder. Camera 2 is recording to one tape recorder. The wide shot, camera 3 is recording to one tape recorder. But there's one tape recorder that's recording this live switched output. That's called the line cut. So the people start talking, and if it's just an interview, so we don't know what, it's not a movie or anything. What you'll get in a booth is you'll get a director going, and 3, okay, and take 1, and 2, 1, and 3, and 2, back to 3, 2 again, 1. And what he's doing is he's telling the guy who's not really looking at much of anything, he's just pushing the buttons, and they're selecting these 3 different feeds, and live it's going into a 4th recorder, and that's called the line cut. You can get a pretty decent line cut when you've got 3 cameras. When you got 2 cameras, you can have a very good line cut because your lag is just like, oh, somebody look, that guy just made an interesting expression. Quickly get to 2, and that's almost as fast as your eye can recognize it. But with 13 cameras, all of which are in incredibly dynamic state of motion, it's absolutely impossible, and I knew it was impossible when I did it, but I had to put the cuts in there so that I could then go in and start tweaking what you're actually seeing during those cuts. So, a 13 camera line cut's just a joke. And what I want to do is I want to play this for you. Mostly I wanted to play it for you as garbage because I put some work into the skins. We're talking about getting our own DCS squadron going, and people wrote me emails that are 2-3 months old now that I still haven't answered yet because we're still getting to the point where we're able to put this together. But in any event, I thought I'd have something out there to show. So I came up with this fictional F-18F squadron, VFA 77, the Tritons. Because I wanted an air-to-air squadron. I wanted guys that threw missiles at other air targets and did fleet defense rather than just go moving the mud around. And so I flew the dogfight one-on-one against the Chinese flanker, the naval flanker J-11, at the ace setting, as good as that guy could get. And he gave me a run for my money. It took me 5 minutes to gun this guy, guns only. And so what I'm going to show you now is a 13 camera line cut that's utter garbage, although it has moments. And the reason it's mostly garbage is because, and this is true in real life as well as in the CG captures. In real life, you'll constantly have cameras resetting, and you can fix this in post. As long as you've got one camera that you can count on, let's say a super wide shot, then these guys can push in for focus pulls, or they can push in, or they can pan from one guy to another. You can either keep the pan or not, depending on whether you want it, but you do all that in the editing room. And so what I'm going to show you is a director trying to catch up with what he's seeing on 13 different monitors, missing all of them, occasionally getting lucky, but with lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of garbage. And the garbage is things like the camera's moving, it's repositioning, it's trying to get that one tracking shot. When you see the finished product, however, it's going to look like everybody there was in perfect synchrony. It's going to look like an orchestra. It's going to look and sound like an orchestra. It's going to look and sound like all of these cameras were absolutely perfect all the time, and that's the miracle of editing. So, unfortunately, you'll have to stay put for next week's episode to see the final product, to see just exactly what I mean about this. But like I said, the fun thing about this is it's dynamic. Now, also on this garbage cut, this line cut, there are 13 different soundtracks, and they're all mixed together. So it's just nothing but noise. It's just nothing but noise. When you get the specific soundtrack to match the shot, all of the 12 other tracks of jet noise go away, and you just get, like, when the Hornet's really pulling hard G's, you get this really, really cool howl. Hornet does this really great kind of a high G howl. That's buried underneath the other 12 tracks until it gets mixed down and so on. So the mix is a big part of it as well. But with all of that said, I'll just go ahead and play it for you. It, compared to the other DCS videos I've seen, I will say this. It's a garbage cut, but you should be able to see the promise in it, because I've got lots and lots of angles that are in constant motion. I got fly-arounds, I got close-ups, I got all kinds of things. So I'm going to show you the garbage now, and then next week I'll show you the finished product, and you can tell me about what you think about the difference. But at the very least, you get to see 5 minutes of jets zooming around, and you get to see the cool skin. Now, I had a guy who refused to take pay or credit for it, bless his heart, just a DCS enthusiast, who did the skins. I gave him the artwork of the Triton throwing his spear. Triton is the son of the sea god Poseidon, and so is Proteus. And yes, and Marisha says, and then it will set it all to danger zone. Exactly. So you'll get to see how the editing works. You just won't get to see all of it tonight. But compared to other DCS videos, you're going to see there's a lot of a lot going on here. And I picked the camera angles very carefully. Some of them were very simple. Some of them are just rear-facing shots. Some of them are just a shot of the wing flexing and watching the flaps, and you just see these big reversals. Some of them are inside the cockpit, but most of them are external shots. Okay, I think I have taken the sound down to a manageable level because it's nothing but white noise roar of 12 or 13 jet engine tracks on top of each other. So it shouldn't blow out your speakers, but be careful anyway. So let me go ahead and start this on YouTube, and then I'll start it on Twitch, and then we'll have a talk about it. Ready? So here we go, YouTube. Okay, YouTube, sorry about that. I had to search for the thing for Twitch, so give me a second for them to catch up, because I put the thing in a different window on the Twitch stream, and that's still running. Then we'll chat about this hot garbage, and then talk some more about some editing in a minute. So just 1 second while Twitch catches up, which is just about now, I think. Close enough. Okay. Everything good? Seems to be good. Am I still playing the sound on? Everybody hear me okay? Seems like we're back in business. Okay, so like I said several times, that's hot garbage. And the reason it's hot garbage is because it is randomly going from one shot to another. But when I polish this, it's going to look, it's going to tell a story, and so this is what we call a line cut. And the fewer the cameras and the better the director, the more the line cut can look like the final product. Now, when I was editing Sunday Morning Shootout, I think I did 164 episodes with Peter Bart and Peter Goober for AMC back between about 84 and 88, something like that, 83, 88. Sorry. 2003 to 2008. I never used the line cut because I just like to build it up as I go. Did I say next week? I think somebody said I'm bailing on Oshkosh. I'm not officially bailing on Oshkosh. I'm planning on going to Oshkosh unless we get the mold test done tomorrow, and if the mold test is saying we need to move out of the house for a little while, then I can't leave Natasha for that. But so I guess it'll be the week after that. Maybe I'll just do a special. Probably do a special show just to air it, just to show you the editing. So in any event, what you saw just there, as I said before, was just scratch trying to catch up with 13 different cameras. But even then, in the middle of all these jumps, and me repositioning the camera and trying to set up another shot, and I don't have a controller, I've just got mouse and keyboard, so I'm running out of mouse pad, and I have to, scroll all that stuff. Even with all that stuff, there are still moments in there where the shot I was looking for was captured. There's still moments when you say, that's cool. And then, so now my job is to go ahead and take all of those, hey, that's cool moments, and make all of it, that's cool. And do things like, be sure you're doing things like cutting away from the Hornet to the J11, back to the Hornet, a couple different angles. So, in any event, then I will go ahead and get the audio to make some sense. And then I'll lay some bitchin' music underneath it, and it's going to look like a little movie sequence. And I may cut some of it, too, because we basically did an awful lot of circling. But I don't know if I'm going to cut it, because it was a 5-minute job getting this guy in the gun sight. The AI on DCS is not terrific. This was the ace setting, and basically all this guy's doing is turn reversals, just nothing but turn reversals. I have found a fighting style that I like. When I was playing DCS, and I've been playing DCS for a long time now, I always get suckered into, I used to always get suckered into the low energy fight, where I'd try to just turn on the guy, or sometimes I'd reverse do a one circle fight. But we're at 300 knots or something like this, 350 or 320, and the guy'd start climbing. I'd start climbing after him. I'm trying to get a shot on him. Next thing you know, I'm at 200 knots. I'm at 160 knots. It's like, no. So now, what's been working really well for me, those of you who have been watching Growling Sidewinder, or anybody else interested in aerial combat, there's basically two different kinds of dogfights. There's a two-circle fight where one plane's nose is chasing the other plane's tail, and they're going round and around and around like that. A lot of what you saw was a two-circle fight. Hornet's not a crazy great two-circle fighter. And then the other version of that is where you turn into the guy's nose, where it's a nose-to-nose fight, where you're constantly going around and and that's called a one-circle fight because both planes are moving on the same circle. I've always thought that was confusing, the one-circle, two-circle thing, but that's the definitions that people use. And for the longest time in DCS, especially against the damn MiG-21 mission, I would try to, get on the tail of this MiG-21, and he'd just sit up there, and I knew I had more thrust and power than he did, but he would just stay above me, and I would just keep trying to stay turning with him, and it just mocked me. And so finally, I just realized I'm gonna try something different. I'm not saying this works in the real world. I'm just saying it's been relatively successful for me. I've been able to consistently defeat 4J11s simultaneously, and that's not easy because once you get lined up on one guy for the shot, you get three guys behind you lined up on you, and got shot down plenty of times doing that. But basically, the method that I've been developing, that I'm getting comfortable with, you would think that the fastest way you could accelerate would be to point the jet down, and you'd be half right about that. But if you point the jet down in full afterburners, the wings are still providing lift, even if you're in a dive. And the actual term is you need to unload the jet, you need to unload the wing. So you actually push the stick forward, which takes the G load down to zero. Now you're in a zero G jet, and now that jet's just going like a bat out of hell. Even if you're level, if you push the nose forward and unload the wing so that the engines aren't having to provide the induced drag to lift the airplane, if you get rid of that induced drag, she just accelerates like a rocket. And so now the kind of fighting I do is kind of fighting I could do very comfortably from my simulator chair. I wouldn't want to do this in the real seat. But basically, I'll enter a fight at 600 knots, which is way too fast for a turning fight. The Hornet's best turning speed is around 450 knots. 650 knots, I'm making huge circles. 700 knots sometimes, making huge circles. But nobody can put a pipper on me because I'm turning so fast. And when I do get a target and roll off on that target, I'm rolling off with no less than 500 knots, and usually 600. And that means that once I can get behind a guy, I've got enough energy to either pull him in the HUD. When I do that, he's going to start his reversals. And then as he starts reversing, he's using all these high G maneuvers that are slowing him down. And I'm basically just going straight at him. And I'm pushing the stick too. I'm pushing that stick forward. So I'm unloading the jet. So he's out here doing his reversals, and I'm just gaining on him. And the more I gain on him, the wider and wider these reversals get. And it's difficult to get occasionally you'll get a real thing where the guy will just start climbing, and you can just pull lead and you put the pipper over him and just gun him, and that's just real easy. But when you're doing nothing but these constant scissors, it's just one giant thatch weave. And all of the shots are high aspect shots, which means he's going to cross in front of you. He may or may not cross in front of your gun plane. It's a sucker bet to keep trying to shoot because you've got very limited amount of ammo. Usually the best thing to do is try and time it so you can get behind him on the roll, and then as you get behind him on the roll, you lead him a little bit, and then you put some rounds out there and he flies into him. In any event, what if anything can a combat simulator teach you about translate to real world combat? Well, this high energy fight that I do it works, and the sim. I think it's fair to say that DCS is probably 85% accurate, and that gets into the tiny little details. But I think as a general overall rule, the flight mechanics are pretty solid. Now, obviously, I'm not going to invent something on my PC in terms of a fighting technique that hasn't already been figured out and discarded by the Navy. The Navy. The U.S. Navy, that Navy, this Navy here. Check it out. The Navy. So this may just be applicable for just flight sims only, but real high energy. So basically what happens is I'll extend and I'll get up to 600 knots. I'll have a whole when I'm fighting 4 guys at once, which is much more challenging. There'll just be this entire gaggle on my tail, and I'll just roll into a 90-degree bank and pull. And I've learned from nasty experience that I want my velocity vector, the direction my plane is going, I want it slightly above the horizon when I pull. The G mechanics on DCS have been improved enormously recently. So as you pull hard, you're pulling 7, 8, getting into 9 Gs, and the color starts to bleed out of the scene. And then as you continue to pull, the scene darkens around the edges, and eventually it will collapse to, almost this much. The problem is sometimes it will just cut out to black, which is G-lock, G-induced loss of consciousness. And you could say, oh, I was in a left turn when I G'd out, so I'll just put in some right stick. No, nothing happens. But I found that if I was carrying just tons of energy in the bank, lots more than I needed for a 2-circle fight, then I could get into a 2-circle fight and start at 550 knots, pull down to 450, get to that best turning rate, and basically just get in front of these guys. Get behind these guys and torch them. The highest setting they have in DCS is the ace. And about the best fighter they've got is the flanker, which is the J11. And when I tee up against that guy one-on-one, I'm beating him 8 times out of 10. So I don't know. We'll see. But I'm going to put this thing that you saw together, going to edit it, going to put some music behind it. And you'll see the magic of editing. And then after that, we'll move on with a bunch of other entertainment-related stuff. So anyway, one last word about the skins. I have a standard skin for the Tritons, which is suppressed gray on gray. I believe it's true in the fleet. I know that the fleet will occasionally do, high visibility paint jobs. And in DCS, I don't know how true this is in the real fleet compared to DCS, but in DCS, generally, the Squadron CAG Commander Air Group, the Squadron Commander will have a custom paint job. And I was originally going to go with blue and gold, but since he's the god of the sea, I went with like Caribbean blue and a kind of Caribbean green and gold. And I just love the color scheme on what you just saw. I thought it was just really cool, and I love the logo too. I love that Triton logo on the tail. I thought it really looked fantastic. So yeah, I'm looking forward to flying against some real pilots, and I will get to the people who wanted to sign up and sent me emails, and we'll do another sign up option and stuff. So there we go, one thing at a time here. But in any event, that's a line cut from 13 different camera angles, and when I get my little claws on it, what you're gonna see next, you will not recognize. Can you get those decal files? Yes. Once we set up this virtual squadron, you'll have to get the Superbug mod for the F-18F. I've got a couple mods in there that give color MFD displays, which look more like the new Super Hornets. And then not only will I make the skins available, but once we get the squadron into shape and people, shown some real interest and want to stick around, then everybody in the squadron is going to have their own unique board number. 501, 502, 503. Usually the CAG has 500 or 400, 200, whatever. But then what I'll do is I'll run a set of skins that have your individual board number, and I'll put your name and call sign on the canopy rail. So yeah, so that'll be fun. It is kind of a pastel fighter jet, I suppose, but it just looks aquatic to me. It looks, and that's the mission I wanted for the Tritons. I mean, I've done enough air to ground in the Hornet, and it is a strike fighter, obviously, but I don't know. The thing I liked about the Tomcat, which is not with us anymore, so something's got to be doing it. I love the fleet defense mission. That to me is the reason I like to fly Navy. That and all the carrier ops and stuff. Fleet defense is to me, the most stressful mission, because you've got 5,000 people on the carrier. I don't know how many people on an Arleigh Burke, probably around $2,000, I would say, somewhere in that general ballpark, something like that. Crew of an Arleigh Burke class destroyer. And so you've got a carrier strike group back there. And I've been playing around with a mission where there's a full-scale, all-in, two-wave Chinese attack where it's something like 15 J-11s preceding 24 of their bombers with the hypersonics, and then behind them is a second wave of like 24 J-11s in front of 35 bombers, each with 6 cruise missiles. And you've got to get out there and intercept those bombers. If those cruise missiles get off the rails, then they're going to overwhelm the defenses, and you're going to certainly going to lose the cruisers and the destroyers, and the mission success for the Chinese will be the loss of the carrier. If they don't sink the carrier, that's a loss for them. A perfect mission is where they don't sink anything. 300 people only for a DDG? Well, that seems much more reasonable than what I said. I said 2,000. That's absurd. But still, you're talking about better part of 8,000 people back there behind on the fleet. And if you don't get these guys, if you don't get these bombers and get through their fighter defense before they launch those cruise missiles, they're all going to die. And the responsibility is really, really high. Now, of course, when you've got a mission where you've got 88 incoming aircraft and something like, I don't know, 35 Hornets just this mission I've put together is just really cool. I mean, the thing just starts and you're the third wave off the deck, and the second this thing starts, the helicopter goes off, and then the Hawkeye goes off, and the Hornets are starting up, and they're taxiing to the correct cats, and you're sitting there, you're doing your startup, and then you get on the thing, and these first two waves, and then everything after you is going straight at the teeth of the fighters and the incoming first wave of bombers. But your mission is to basically offset by 40 degrees and do an end run around the first wave completely. Come back, try to get past that second wave of fighters without engaging them, and then just knock down that second wave, which is just I don't know, 40 bombers with 240 cruise missiles, six on a bomber, and you have to thin them out. Because if you don't thin them out, there's no chance, and so it's balanced pretty well, and I'll make it available as soon as I get it tweaked out. I'm looking forward to doing a mission where we get to go after the Chinese fleet. There's all kinds of cool weapons that are available in DCS that are mods. Let's just talk about this for a second, then we'll take questions. We'll get all the questions tonight. So the standard, well, I just caught myself doing what I criticized the missile for. The air defense missile for the U.S. Navy for the last 40 years or something has been called the Standard Missile, which is named after like a Roman standard, but it's just tempted to say it's like Standard Missile. It just sounds like standard can opener, or your standard stem speech. But the Standard Missile is a big missile, and it's a very effective missile. We haven't had a long-range missile since the AIM-54 Phoenix. The Phoenix was flown and built specifically for the Tomcat, and the Tomcat was built for the Phoenix. The Phoenix apparently had an engagement envelope that went out to 300 miles. It wasn't designed to shoot down fast-moving fighters, but it was designed to take out incoming bombers. So that's the fleet defense mission, and that's the mission I really like. Now the harm is the anti-radiation missile, Tim. So we've been using these Standard missiles coming out of the vertical launch systems to take out incoming enemy cruise missiles, enemy aircraft. It can take out enemy ballistic missiles. It can take out ballistic missiles being launched, to hit the homeland. Some of them. and it's just a big ass missile. Our air-to-air missile since the 90s has been the AMRAAM, and when it was introduced in the early 90s, it was completely unmatched. It generally has a range out to about 30 or 40 miles, but now the Russians and the Chinese are both flying, and the British for that matter, are flying missiles with a greater than 100-mile engagement range, and some of them are hypersonic. The latest version of the AMRAAM, the AMRAAM Delta, goes out to about 80 or 90 miles, 100 miles. It's a game changer, but it's still not far enough. We have the AIM-260 advanced missile, which is on its way and just about entering testing now and should be deployed in the not too distant future, which will be the best missile in the world. But meanwhile, we've been completely outranged by enemy missiles. So what there have been photographs in the real world of recently is they have strapped 2 standard missiles underneath the wings of a Super Hornet, which is like carrying big cigars. I mean, the missile's damn near the size of the jet. And close-ups of it showed the designation as the AIM-174, which is interesting because the Phoenix missile was the AIM-54. The standard has the AMRAAM Seekerhead, which is the best in the world. And so if you take AIM-54 and the AIM-120 AMRAAM, you get the AIM-174. So these big standard missiles underneath the wings of a Hornet, it can probably carry 4, but whether it can carry 4 with enough fuel is a different story, but it can carry 4. Now the Hornet can engage at the limit of its radar, which is generally about 80 or 90 miles reliably. But the beautiful thing about the standard is that the standard missile can be guided to it's got its own internal seeker. All Fox 3 missiles, that's the definition of a Fox 3 missile, is a missile that's got its own radar. It's a fire and forget missile. But when you're shooting at something 100 miles, 150, 200 miles away, the internal seeker on that radar is going to have a hell of a hard time finding something 200 miles away. The idea is you use the airplane's radar to guide it to the general vicinity. And then once you get it close, then the internal radar and the missile takes over, and happy days are here again. So that's the kind of mission that I like flying. I like scrambling out there, getting out there fast. The Hornet is not a fast airplane, the Super Hornet either. In fact, it's a chore to get that baby above Mach 1, let alone Mach 2. So it's not a fast airplane, but it is a beast, and it does everything. And I wanted a squadron that was specifically an air superiority squadron. I don't know enough about the doctrine of the Navy. I should know this, but I don't. But it seems to me that all of the squadrons on board all of our carriers are FA squadrons, fighter attack squadrons. They do both. They're designed to be fighters, and they're designed to be attack aircraft. And virtually all of the use of the Hornets has been in the attack role. You send your carriers out there, and then the Hornets go in and they hit ground targets, and they launch harms and take out enemy air defenses, and they bomb targets, and they use standoff missiles and all the rest. But the 2 missions I really like are fleet defense and then anti-shipping. I like blue water operations. I really like blue water operations. I'm not as much interested as many people as just going bombing some shack someplace. And so my thought was, why not train up as a pretty much an air-to-air and air-to-sea squadron and not worry so much about the air-to-ground stuff. Don't be too concerned with the Mavericks and the JDAMs and all the rest of it. Just practice up on the long-range BVR air-to-air missions. Be prepared to get in close and use the sidewinders and the guns. Be an air-to-air squadron. And then also be capable of really getting good at anti-shipping strike missile missions. We have the Harpoon, which has been with us since the 80s. It's slow and it's easy to shoot down. The but enough of them can ring somebody's bell if you can flood their defenses. We have the new stealth anti-ship missile, which is not in the game yet, and I haven't seen a mod for it yet. The LRASM, yeah, and they're slow as well, but they're stealth, so they can't be engaged until they're right on top of them. There's the TALDS, which is the tactical air launch decoy. It's fun to take a squadron up and have one guy loaded with nothing but these TALDS. They look like small little flying, they look like little toy boats basically. And you can carry 3 on a pylon, and you can carry at least 4 pylons of those things. And basically what you do with those guys is you just kind of fly in and you drop them. They're not powered, but they will maintain the speed and a slow descent, and they're sending out a signal that looks like either F-18s or so they're basically just decoys. It gets me thinking about doctrine for a strike on a Chinese surface group. What I would do is I would take flights of F-18s out there. I'd put the Tritons up front and up high. I'm not including F-35s at this point because I put them in the air-to-air if I had a choice. But I put the guys up there with the standard missiles to take out enemy fighters, do a fighter sweep, clean the area. Then I'd send in a big wave of Hornets, and I'd have them come in like they're getting ready to really knock the hell out of this thing, and then have them drop nothing but TALDs, just nothing but TALDs, these decoys. I'd send 100 TALDs in there, 200. I'd just have the Chinese radar scopes just like, holy cow, here they come, and here comes just those waves. And then just as they're about to get an engagement range, I'd have all my Hornets break off and go home, and I'd let them use all of their missiles against these flying paint bucket decoys. And once I'd depleted their missiles, I'd have a second wave back there with the stealth anti-ship missiles, and we put them all in the bottom of the ocean where they belong with the LRASMs. It's just so much fun. Just send them in, launch these decoys, keep them coming. The second the air defenses come out, your guys break off. All of their weapons are automatic, and which it has to be, and just soak up all of their air defenses. Just expend them. By the way, this is one of the major shortfalls of modern naval doctrine, and it affects the U.S. and it affects China as well. It may affect us worse, in fact, and that is you can only carry so many of these vertical launch system tubes. I don't remember how many Arleigh Burke has. I want to say it's 68 or 72 or something like that. But that's 72 missiles, and once those tubes are empty, that's it. In order to be rearmed, you've got to do it at a port, which means you've got to sail your butt back to Hawaii or Guam or someplace like that. And when you see how kinetic these fleet actions are in the modern world, modern combat, there's 600-700 SAMs that are going out from the fleet. 700 SAM missiles, just the SAMs. It's astonishing. So there's a lot of work being done on seeing whether you can do underway rearmament. You can underway replenish. Everybody's seen where you shoot the cable over and you refuel ships. You'll see them appear to be refueling aircraft carriers. The aircraft carrier doesn't need the fuel. It's got nuclear power, but you do have to put more jet fuel on for the jets and supplies and stuff for the people and so on. But we need to find a way to rearm at sea, because the idea that you would take a surface group out into harm's way, you would have one engagement. You'd fire everything you've got in the tubes, and then you're stark naked, and you can't do any more offense, you can't do any more defense. And we've got longer supply lines if we're going to be fighting, much longer supply lines if we're going to be fighting in the South China Sea. So it's nice to have a number of different carrier groups so you can rotate them out. But Tim Morris says the Navy's been trying putting HIMARS and Patriot batteries on deck as backup. I think the problem is the replenishment ships. It's virtually impossible to do at sea because those missiles have to be dropped in vertically, and you need that ship docked, and you need the crane docked. They both need to be absolutely stationary. I mean, there's like a half an inch tolerance or something like that. Virtually impossible to do that at sea. I personally think that if we put our mind to it, we could do it. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm sure there's an excellent reason why this can't be done. But basically, you've got this tube that's got the missile in it, and this square tube has to go inside this square launcher, and that requires extremely precise alignment. But I'm wondering why you couldn't just use a funnel. I mean, it seems like that would you couldn't do it in rough seas, but wouldn't that work in relatively calm seas if you just had a big funnel? And so the entrance to the mouth of the funnel is wide, and presumably this thing's not going to detonate. It bangs around a little bit, and as you lower it, it's going to eventually just a square-sided funnel. Then you just pick the frickin' funnel up and you put it in the next tube, and that was my $1 million idea. They use funnels, and I want credit. But anyway, I'm sure they've got some very bright guys thinking on how to do this. All right, so anyway, enough yapping. Let's talk about questions here and see what we get for tonight. I didn't get the arrow. I got the oh, come on, the crystal, and I need to sell it. It's brand new. I got it as a present for myself after finishing the it's a VR headset. I got it for a present for myself after finishing the Frank Luke thing, which took me 100 years. But I realized that I can't use it. First of all, it's very heavy, but that's a problem I can get around. The major problem is that I had C5 and C6 vertebrae fused back when I was in my 30s, I guess, late 30s. And I can't turn my neck much around past this, so it's, in terms of flight simming, it's just out of the question. I can't even come close to turning around that way. So, yeah. Oh, I suspect it might be possible. The real issue might be maybe you take the entire rack of the whole, instead of trying to load each one of these individual tubes. This is going to require a complete redesign and re-engineering, but it seems like the thing to do is just take the entire frickin' thing out and just load an entire thing back in there. So, we'll see. Anyway, that's that. Let's go to the show. Any news lately? We do our right angles tomorrow. I just think the fist in the air. Oh, by the way, as a brief interlude of politics, I've talked many times about the election betting odds as being much more reliable than polls, because people will say what they want to at polls, but when you're looking at betting odds, you're dealing with what are people putting their money on. You could be a Biden supporter, but if you think Trump's going to win, you're not going to bet $10,000 on Biden just because you like Biden. The debate knocked Biden's number. Trump was significantly ahead. The debate knocked Biden way down, and Trump went up about 6. But now, after the assassination attempt, if we had a 4 or 5 point lead, that would be significant. A 6 or 7 point lead is something to feel pretty comfortable about. Right now, in terms of the betting odds, chance of winning the presidency, Donald Trump 67.5%, Biden 17.9%, Harris 7.7%, Newsom 2%. So when people are putting their money on the line, Trump has not a 5 point lead, not a 15 point lead. Donald Trump has a 50 point lead, a 50-point lead over Joe Biden right now. 67.5 to 17.9. He's got 50 points. They can't cheat their way out of a 50-point lead. They can't. So, we will see. Back to the questiones. Come on. And furthermore, one moment. Get into the questions. Yeah, I saw the Aussie guys building a full-scale colonial Viper. That's awesome. I love people like that. I just love people that do things like that. Opening up the questions here. Any news about a group of furry hackers leaked Project 25 docs hoping to prove fascism, then disbanded after proving the project was a Chinese op? Yeah. I saw somebody saying, if Project 2025 will make any form of birth control illegal. And I thought, I think you might be just a little bit hysterical, ma'am. I think maybe you should retire to the fainting couch because you've got the vapors. Oh, and back just to the election on things here. This is fun. House right now, 54% chance of winning the House. Senate, 76% chance of winning the Senate, controlling the Senate. And by party, the presidency by party is 68% Republican, 31% Democrat. I'm liking these numbers quite a bit. Hang on. I have to follow this. In the YouTube section, Kaladin says, Stockley said, did anybody else see Destiny tank his career? I didn't, but I would like to hear about this because that guy is the most nothing thinker I've ever run into. This Destiny guy is apparently like the left's, debate champion. He's a featherweight. He's got nothing. I've listened to this guy a couple times, and he's got absolutely nothing. And plus, he's annoying, as one would expect. So, did he make some fun tweets about the assassination? Oh, I can't wait to see Marusha's on the job, so it'll get done. Back to the questions. Let's see what we got here. Jordan Peterson owned him. Everybody's owned him. Yeah, Peterson not only owned him. Peterson was angry at him because he's disingenuous, and socialism is the way to go. Communism is slavery. Shut up, idiot. Destiny was super nasty after the attack on Trump, and no sympathy for the bystanders hit shows he's a monster. Yes. I had a chance to prove this theory about right and wrong and left and right and decency and I'd like to do the F-104. Decency and indecency. And I remember when we did we were about to roll cameras on a right angle on Ruth Bader Ginsburg being incapacitated and looked like she was being taken out of not. This wasn't when she died, but this was when she was very ill. And we started this segment off, and Stephen Scott and I, all three of us said, listen, we don't want any harm to come to this person. We don't mean her any harm. We disagree with her politics, and we think she's done a great deal of damage to the country, but we don't want anything bad to happen to her. I would like her to retire and have a wonderful life with the rest of her family. If she wants to stay in the Supreme Court, that's her business. I'm happy to disagree with her, but I don't want any harm to come to her. I don't want any harm to come to Joe Biden. What I want is Joe Biden to see what it looks like Wednesday after the election. That's what I want. That's what I'm waiting for. But if somebody had taken a shot at Obama, if somebody had taken a shot at Biden, my initial immediate response would be, this is a catastrophe. This has got to be absolutely condemned. Thank you again, John Eden. You are a fine man. Just a $99.99 super chat for nothing. No questions, nothing. Thank you, John. But seriously, I'm not. I'm not saying this to look good. This is how I feel. I don't want anybody shooting the president. I don't want anybody shooting anybody. I'd like to see Hillary go to jail, but I'd like to see her go to jail after a fair trial and she is convicted. And if she's not convicted, then she doesn't go to jail. But this business about, oh, he missed, or these people are ill. There's something really, really ill and about them. And I don't know, man. The more I see of the two teams and their behaviors, the happier I am to be on the team I'm on. And I'll just wrap up this little political interlude, which is, of course, how do you not talk about this? But I'll just wrap this up by saying, in terms of which team would I like to be on, you saw that debate performance of Biden, and then you saw this guy get shot in the ear, and he's pushing up around his body shield and just pumping his fist, saying fight, fight, fight. That picture of him with the flag in the background is iconic, and I couldn't be prouder of him. I couldn't be prouder of the people. I noticed that when the shooting started there, nobody panicked. There was no nobody got trampled. The man who was killed was a firefighter. He just turned 50 years old, and he was killed because the second the shots fired, he grabs his wife and his two daughters, pushes them down, and gets on top of them. And so the guy on my team is a firefighter, a hero, a family man, a father, a husband, who went out, who left this earth in the most honorable fashion that a person can leave this planet. He went out protecting his loved ones. He went out successfully protecting his loved ones, and he went out as a man and a dad and a father and as a hero. And then you look at this 20-something loser dweeb who pulled the trigger, and who is so filled with hate that he's willing to kill innocent people. He didn't think they were innocent people. He knew there was somebody behind Trump if he missed, and even if he didn't miss, he knew that. He just thought they were subhumans too. I can't conflate the two. So I'm trying to read about what Destiny said here. Looks like he deleted the tweet. What tweet was it? Someone asked Destiny, is that the hill you want to die on? He replied, don't you mean the bleachers you want to die on? He wanted to die on? Wow. Destiny, if you're going to trash your entire career, appropriately so, over a witty line, my advice to you would be at least make it witty. That's not even funny. It's not even clever, which is basically what I was saying in the beginning. What did he say exactly? Looks like Destiny deleted the tweet. I guess, I don't know. Well, okay, good. And by the way, these people do need to be pursued. These people who say, oh, I'm glad he died. They don't need to be hurt. They don't need to be doxxed. They just need the feedback. Because and they're apparently getting it, because I saw all the people who basically said this, and I went and looked at their accounts, and they were all shut down. He deserved that the man in the bleachers deserved to die. And he was disappointed that Trump survived. Okay. Here's the thing about this. Destiny. If you come out in favor of political assassination, and you're in favor of people basically killing each other, you are opening the door to your own demise only because you are I don't want a violent political environment because I'm in the political environment. He's in the political environment as well. Elon demonetized him. Okay, I wish I could find out what he said. Because it doesn't surprise me. All these people have are dogmatism and hate. And who hates dogmatism? I mean, who hates their dogs? That was kind of weak, I have to say. All right, back to the questions. All right. TSS questions for today. We'll do the questions, and then we will stop doing the questions. And thank you, Ian Nolan, for curating these things. Yeah, they're angry and they're stupid and they're insecure and they're filled with hate. What can you do against such relentless hate? Okay. Questions. Ian Nolan. Bill, I was fortunate enough, thanks to a gift from my wife, to spend Independence Day at an air show featuring the Blue Angels. Amazing, and what a wonderful way to rekindle the spirits of patriotism. Well, that's a great, Ian, and there's more coming. The Blue Angels look beautiful, but they sound even more amazing. And then on top of that, they smell like freedom too. It's that kerosene smell, smell of jet fuel, burnt jet fuel. It's nothing like it. Anyhow, one of the planes I got to see live made me re-nominated for the title of Best Looking Jet in History, a category I had previously dismissed it from. The plane was a pristine and flying de Havilland Vampire with a deep blue top and a white belly. What say you? I remember the de Havilland Vampire. Pretty sure that's not only a first generation jet, that might be a zero generation jet. Yeah, I would not call that a pretty airplane. It's a unique looking airplane, but I maybe, and I don't think I'm wrong about this. I think I'll stand on this. I'll stand on this hill. The British, I'm half British. I mean, I am half British. But in my opinion, the British have only made one aircraft that was ever beautiful, and that's a Spitfire. And that airplane is so beautiful it makes up for all the other ones, because the rest of them are not just not beautiful, they're freaking hideous. They're just horrible. They're just, I don't know what it is about that, but man, I think the Vulcan is a real ugly airplane. I think what is it? It's not the electric. Stop texting me, you people. The Tornado, they're, and those are the better looking ones. So anyway, no, I'm afraid I'm not a fan of the de Havilland Vampire, especially in the looks department. What would I say is the best looking? Well, the Spitfire, obviously. Spitfire is monumentally beautiful. Like I said, it's beautiful enough to make up for all of the other mistakes. But the U.S. makes by far the most beautiful airplanes. Now, a lot of people really like the lines of the flanker with a long curved nose, and I don't. I think it's overly sensuous. That's what I think about the flanker lines. I think it's an overly sensuous looking airplane. MiG-29 is not bad looking, but the F-16 is from the side, not so great from the top, but from the side the F-16 is shockingly beautiful. The SR-71 is beautiful. The B-70 is beautiful. The F-100 is beautiful. The 104 is beautiful. The Super Hornet's got that Cobra hood of the leading edge extensions on the Super Hornet. It took me a while to figure out whether I really liked them or not, but now I love them. And the A-10 is beautiful in an ugly way. Even the A-10 is the best looking ugly airplane in the world. And I'm sorry, like I said, it's half my family, but ugh, not so much. Eric Blake, warning: the following question may induce vomiting. Although if it helps you get the mold out of the system, so much the better. Yes, I'm ready to go. Yes, the F-22 is beautiful. The B-1 is beautiful. The B-58 Hustler is beautiful. We have made some ugly airplanes. The Shooting Star was the F-80 Shooting Star is a real ugly airplane. The B-36 Peacemaker was an ugly airplane. And I never particularly liked, and I think the F-105 Thunder Chief is an ugly airplane. It looks kind of cool from the side, but from the top, it's just, I'm not a fan. But by and large, the stuff we make is just gorgeous. And the Russian stuff, trying to think if anything really stands out. Not really, no. Not really. The Goblin is an ugly plane. All right. So here's the vomiting-inducing question here. 6 turning and 4 burning. 7 livery rise, merchant dark. Okay, we can do these definitely. So here's back to Eric Blake's question. So imagine, if you will, a staunch gun control advocate gives you a sad life story about an AR-15 killed my father. I can't abide that terrible weapon remaining legal. Now, assuming this person's story is true, of course, we feel for this poor unfortunate soul, absolutely. But it doesn't change the fact, as the NRA catchphrase goes, guns don't kill people, people kill people. Naturally, of course, we all agree, or at least we did until we lost our guns in that tragic boating accident. Let me just say this about that. I've given this a great deal of thought. And I've given this enough thought for me to be confident that this is not just cocktail party bravado. If my wife were killed by an AR-15, or anybody else that I cherish in my life, there's nobody even close to that, obviously, but if that were to happen, then it wouldn't change my opinion about AR-15s or gun control. I've given this a great deal of thought because I've realized this is the ultimate test of your belief. It's easy to say, well, I like the guns until you lose somebody, but I've thought about it a lot, deeply, and I'm confident that it wouldn't change my opinion. I believe they are. I believe that they are a necessary good, and that empowering the people is the only place in time and history where the people have had lethal force on their side. And if it turns out that me or my wife or anybody else that I care about turns out to be one of those people that die as a result of that weapon or the right to keep and own weapons, well then that's the price we pay. Freedom isn't free. The automobile isn't free. We lose thousands and thousands of people to drunk drivers every year. That's not an argument to eliminate the car. And it's sure as hell not an argument to make the people who don't drive drunk stop driving. Because the murdering's not done by law-abiding citizens by definition. So I've never bought that argument. If it turned out that I get knocked off by an AR-15, and everybody's saying, well, I bet that changes his opinion about the AR-15, you can tell them, for me, I won't be here anymore. You tell them, no, my only regret is that I didn't have one to fight back with. That would be my response to it. Hammers and knives obviously kill far more people a year than AR-15s or guns at all, in fact. So it's not so hard really to figure out. Principles are principles. You either have them or you don't. And while I obviously care more about my wife than I do about a stranger, I am capable of understanding that a stranger's loved one is as dear to them as mine are to me. But no, I don't expect life to be fair or perfect. I just want it to be as good as possible. And if it turned out that there was no violence and no tyranny, then we wouldn't need them. But there is, so we do. Next. Story number 2. Back in the American Revolution, the good ship HMS Enterprise of the Royal Navy was seized by our side and became, of course, the original USS Enterprise. I'm sure some of the revolutionaries might have had bad memories of what that damn ship did to me beforehand, but alas, they understood that it wasn't the ship responsible for those things. It was the British Royal Navy on that ship. And when we took it, so much the better. She was a good ship, the first of legacy we know and love, live long and prosper. Let me just say this because I did this research for the John Paul Jones segment on America's Forgotten Heroes. America built, I want to say, 7 frigates during the Revolutionary War, and John Paul Jones got none of them. He had to fight with Bonhomme Richard, which was a fat, slow, overweight, undermanageable trading ship. These frigates that the U.S. had built during the Revolutionary War were the best warships in the world, and the Royal Navy said so because they captured 2 of them and put them into use. The handling, with one exception, of those American ships was so pathetic. They were run aground, they were abandoned, they were set on fire, they were captured by the British, they were just bottled up. The story of those original frigates is just appalling. And if John Paul Jones had had his hands on a real fighting ship, what he would have accomplished is really almost unbelievable. Because what he did on board the Ranger and Bonhomme Richard were toys compared to what he was going up against. British first-ranked ship of the line. Crime of the Revolution was that the only guy that we had on our side who knew how to actually fight these people at sea didn't get the weapons that other people got because of their political connections. And it's just that simple. It was just their political connections. Here, have a brand new frigate. Well, okay then. Let's just build one for His Majesty, because that's what happened to 2 or 3 of them. Let's see. Now, Bill, you might know where I'm going with this. Don't have the faintest idea. As he said last week, it may make you feel nauseous, but as Henry V put it, he hath no stomach to this fight, let him depart. In no way can I presume to press you to join me. You have your battles and I have mine, but I speak from one rational man to another, that you may understand where I'm coming from. I feel for you, Bill, your personal pain and all the Iger regime has done, but, like the AR-15 or the HMS Enterprise, it's not Disney itself causing the pain as if some monolithic being. Its enemies in control of it, and when the good guys have it in their hands, suddenly it ain't so painful, and as so brilliantly pointed out, rebuilt back better than ever. Thank you, Nelson and Elon. Now again, Bill, it's not about imploring you to join the fight. It's not your fight, I get that. I just hope I've sufficiently explained to my side to ensure a decent understanding amid a gentleman's agreement. So, Bill, how do we stand? Look, Eric, I admire your tenacious defense of Disney and your desire to recover it. I just never had the original attachment to it that you had. I suppose I could, that was so eloquently put that I'll re-examine my position. I had a lot of fun in Disney World growing up when I was in Florida. Graduated high school in '77. We did, I must have been to Disney World, I don't know, 10, 11 times or something. It's a miserable 5-hour drive from Miami, 5-hour drive, something like that. But I had a wonderful time at Disney World. I never really got anything out of the Disney movies that was really exceptional. I like Pinocchio as my favorite Disney movie. As well before my time, obviously. But I didn't go through that whole second golden age or the silver age. I didn't, the Little Mermaid and all that rest of the stuff. It just never built up enough stock. I had a large affinity for The Wonderful World of Disney and later Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color, and sitting there waiting for it to be Adventureland or Tomorrowland or Frontierland or Fantasyland, always wishing for Tomorrowland, happy with the Fantasyland, but it always ended up being either Adventureland or Frontierland. Freaking Frontierland, But even then, I was a huge Daniel Boone fan. I got to know Ed Ames really well. In fact, he died just a year or two ago. The kindest gentleman in the world, and I'd known Ed Ames as an actor, and I'd known Ed Ames from having probably the biggest laugh on The Tonight Show. Early in The Tonight Show, when Carson was just getting started, Ames was throwing a tomahawk, and he threw it at this cutout of a guy on a wooden board, and the tomahawk hit him right between the legs and stuck there, and that got this huge laugh. Carson milked it for everything it was worth. But I was such a fan of Daniel Boone, and it wasn't until after I had last seen Ed that I went back and looked at some Daniel Boone reruns and realized, my God, it's Ed Ames playing Daniel Boone's Indian pal. And I wanted to just go back and tell him, Ed, I'm such an idiot. I can't tell you how much that show meant to me. I mean, I had my coonskin cap, and I never did the Cowboys and Indians things. I always thought that was too precious for me. Every time I played Cowboys and Indians all the time, don't get me wrong, but I never really particularly dug the cowboy outfit. The second I saw Daniel Boone, it was like, give me the buckskin and the Winchester and the coonskin cap, and when we went out and played Cowboys and Indians, that's how I did it. And I deeply regret that I didn't have a chance to put those two things together. I feel really, really bad about that. He was one of the most gentle and kind people I've ever met, and never failed to come up to me at one of these events. Never ever failed to come up to me and thank me, and I just sit there and like, if I'd known I was talking with Daniel Boone's trusty Indian friend, then I would have probably just fainted right on the spot. I was at one of these events once, and I looked over, and I thought, my God, that guy looks familiar. Never had a chance to talk to him. I only saw him one event one time. He was ancient. I said, who the hell is that? God, my God, that's Mannix. That's Mike Connors. It's Mannix sitting 2 chairs over from me. I remember Mannix. I remember the theme. And Mag Wheels on the Car. Mannix that's a great show. Sent you a bunch of stuff on Discord about Destiny that you can use for tomorrow's Right Angle if you wish. Can you email it to me? Because I often miss my emails, but I just don't know about Discord. I don't know why I have such a problem with Discord. So anyway, to answer your question, Eric, I'm proud of you. I'm not upset about it. I'm not arguing with you. I say defend on. It's my energy is elsewhere. Is all I have to say, really. I don't really have a Dalmatian in that fight, honestly. That's the truth of it. Ray Juarez, good evening, Sir William of House Whittle. Well, hail and fare thee well, my good fellow. Hope your weekend has gone well and you and Natasha are doing better. Mold is a nasty thing. Dealt with it for a year with a landlord that would only do minor things to fix it. Then he found out the mold had destroyed the whole bathroom and had to fix a much more expensive problem. They're working on it now. We get tested tomorrow. The testing guys come in tomorrow. I think most of the work has already been done. I think the mold levels were higher last week than they are this week. But we'll see. On to my questions. I have 3 shortish ones. Feel free to pick as many as you'd like from the topics provided. I'll take all 3. Astrophysics. With scientists finding that light behaved differently in the past, that's the key to understand. That was the missing key that gave us dark matter and dark energy and all the rest. The idea that light would have behaved differently in the past was just out of the box. And so, once again, science does its science thing, and the consensus of every single astronomer on the planet was wrong because new evidence came up and they were all wrong. Even Neil deGrasse Tyson was wrong. Shocking what nature will do if you're kind to her. It made me wonder if black holes are so massive and dense that their gravitational field stops light from escaping, and that magnetic fields are much stronger than gravitational ones. Would it be possible to create a magnetic field strong enough to stop light, or at least bend it as if it were a black hole? As far as I understand, energy, photonic energy certainly is in fact, energy is immune to magnetism. Let me think about that, make sure I got that right. Yes, magnetism does not, you can't bend light wave with a magnet because it's electromagnetic. Or do you think magnets only affect matter and not waves? Simply a random thought. Thought it might interest you. It does interest me. I never thought about it before. Yes, the point that Stab Sagar over there in YouTube has got it where I was missing a piece of the explanation, and that is that energy has no charge. For magnetism to work, it has to have a charge. Gravity is unipolar, I believe, is the term. There is no positive and negative pole for gravity, but there is a positive and negative pole for electricity, and there is for magnetism. Now, as Donde2K points out, if you've got a really, 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 really big magnet, you could probably bend some light, but it wouldn't be the magnetism doing it. Now, with that said, this is when somebody first explained this to me, I just thought, my God, if you take the tiniest little magnet you've ever seen, a little tiny, tiny, tiny little thin little magnet with a little red paint on the tips, and you take a paper clip and you pick up the paper clip with the magnet, this tiny little piece of metal is outpulling the Earth, which is a big, big, big planet when it comes to solid planets. This tiny little piece of metal is outpulling the Earth. It's outpulling that paper clip. It got the Earth on one side, pulling it down with gravity, and the magnet on the other, and that's how much stronger magnetism is than gravity. Gravity is an extraordinarily weak force, but as it turns out, you get a bunch of stuff together, it'll eventually basically do it. The person who's most shocked that Neil deGrasse Tyson was wrong was Neil deGrasse Tyson. Neil deGrasse Tyson wasn't shocked that Neil deGrasse Tyson was wrong because Neil deGrasse Tyson is not capable of admitting that Neil deGrasse Tyson's wrong about anything. Mo deGrasse Tyson, on the other hand, it's one of the greatest things ever. I got the greatest audience in the world. Robotics ethics. From all across the internet, I've heard that people hate that most robots are being designed to look as much as human as possible. Most people would rather Rosie from the Jetsons, or a robot that's a walking toaster than just had an emoticon for a face like a smiley face or this. Do you think that the odd push towards making human-like robots may be subconscious for want of a lot of smart people to control those they think is stupid, but no, they can't with actual humans? Cyber Karen, if you will. I think the best argument for making robots into looking like humans, making them bipedal and about our size, is everything in the world that they have to navigate is designed for bipedal creatures that are between 5 and 6 feet tall as a general rule. 5.5 to 6 feet tall is pretty much the average. And this is what cars are designed to fit for. All of the shelves in a kitchen, the location of your microwave oven, all of this stuff is designed for bipeds that are at about that height. And I think that the major reason for building humanoid robots is so that they can function in our world without all the rest of this stuff. I mean, the robot from Lost in Space, which I have inexpressible affection for, was my friend growing up. Those claws are pretty much useless, and the treads are completely useless. Just the treads on the surface of a smooth planet with sand, he's not going anywhere. Robbie, on the other hand, was a more believable form of locomotion. And the way they did the legs on that suit, man, because they're perfect. You don't see any... was it Rob Matashita who designed those? I forgot the last name, something like that. Designed both those robots. And I much prefer the Lost in Space robot. But Robbie could climb stairs, and the Lost in Space robot is, useless in terms of locomotion. But it doesn't matter because he's a smart ass and I loved him. And then finally, religious support for mental health. With a conversation about religion in the last Stratosphere Studio, I thought of the basic hymn verse, "Who saved a wretch like me?" Hymn verse, sorry. That verse made me think about how most people who are depressed will view themselves as worthless or as a wretch. Also, wide-scale depression seems to have sprung up mostly in countries that do not have a strong sense of religion. Do you think being religious is something that helps keep the human mind motivated so that it doesn't spiral into itself and become overly introspective? Now it's a question of are we talking about which came first? Is it the chicken or the egg? having been through this before, there's no question in my mind that belief in religious belief is enormously advantageous for your mental health, and I can prove it because the genius of the 12-step program and Alcoholics Anonymous, and Narcotics Anonymous, and all the other 12-step programs. The genius of the 12-step program is that it doesn't use the word God. It uses higher power. Because most of the people that find themselves in Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous are not religious people. And if you use the word God, they would just be right out the door. So they don't say God, they say higher power. But if you follow the philosophy of the 12-step program, it is essentially a catechism. It's a religious catechism. It basically says I am powerless over my addiction, and because I'm powerless over it, it doesn't matter how long or how hard I fight. I've been fighting for however many years, and I've ruined my life, and my wife has left me, and my kids have left me, and I've lost my job, and I'm living on the street, and everything's ruined. And I know I'm not supposed to be drinking, and I'm aware that I'm not supposed to be doing drugs, and I know I could just say no. But if I could just say no, I would say no. I can't. I'm an addict. I'm powerless over this. That's what an addiction is. Many conservatives don't understand this. Many conservatives genuinely think it's a lack of willpower. It's not. It's not a lack of willpower. If it was a lack of willpower, people would get to a point where they'd stop doing it. Addiction is something you are powerless over. That's why people end up killing themselves, because of their addictions, and drinking themselves to death. If they could stop, they would. They want to, but they can't. And the people who say, well, it's just that they're not trying hard enough, if they really wanted to, they could stop, that's easy for you to say because you're not an addict. You're not broken. You don't have this giant hole in the middle of you because you probably had good parenting. And you don't have this enormous void of anxiety and depression that needs to be medicated one way or another. And so you're very much like saying to a person who's going into a diabetic coma, just tough it out, man. Get up. Why are you lying there convulsing? There's nothing wrong with you. Get up. Easy to say if you're not a diabetic. But the main point I'm trying to make here is that addiction and alcoholism and all the rest of it are self-destructive behaviors because the person is so and I'm speaking from experience here, I'm not judging anybody. The person is so consumed with themselves, they're so self-focused, they're so convinced that it's a weird thing. If I said they're so convinced that the world revolves around them, it makes you sound like they're narcissistic, but in a way it's almost the opposite of narcissism. It's kind of like if I don't do everything exactly right, then the world's going to stop turning. If I don't do this, then I'm going to get fired, and if I get fired, I'm not going to have money to pay my bills. If I don't pay my bills, I'm going to get thrown out on the street. If I thrown out on the street, I'm going to get hit by a car. There's no circuit breakers in there. And so you end up going to these terribly dark places, and you have no faith that things will be better because you didn't have parents that caught you. This is the thing about addicts. This is the thing that I found about all of the friends I had that are addicts and alcoholics, who turned out to be some of the most, in fact, without question, as a group, the most interesting and funny people I ever met. But all of us have lack a fundamental sense that things are going to be okay, which is what you get when you have good parents. Dad will jump in front of in the case of what we saw in the bleachers, jump in front of a bullet for you. And mom will be there to put her arms around you and take care of you and make sure that you're fed and everything's okay. Some of us don't have those things for whatever reason. And you end up being you end up living in a world that's much 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 more precarious than normal people can comprehend. And you're not supposed to comprehend it. It's a mental illness. It's a defect. Normal people can't understand it because they're not supposed to understand it. I wouldn't wish understanding it on anybody. If you really understood it, you would have my deepest sympathy. But it is different than being sad. It's different than being worried. It's just different. Salty Monkey said, Bill, do you think that these people are interesting and funny because they didn't have the BS facade that the rest of us wrap around ourselves? No, I think that they're interesting and funny because there's a certain kind of person that can only deal with pain through deflection, and humor is a really excellent way of doing that. I hear you there, Dondi. It's all different recipes and all different formulas for finding yourself in this boat, but I don't know what the percent of the population is that I would describe as people with addictive personality disorder, but it's significant, and I suspect it's getting much 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 worse quickly. But trying to add something of some value here, like Robin Williams. Somebody described this with Robin Williams, and I thought this is actually a perfect description of it. Said that Robin Williams kept trying to get the attention of his mother, and she was not a good mom. She was character disordered mom, and I'm sure she was doing her best too. But Robin Williams wasn't getting what all the other kids were getting in terms of love and affection, and Robin Williams realized he could get his mom's attention by being funny, that he could make her laugh, and if she'd laugh, she would pay attention to him. And so the person said the problem with Robin Williams is that it always had to be Robin plus. It couldn't just be Robin. In Robin Williams' mind, it always had to be Robin plus. Robin plus a funny routine, Robin plus money or gifts, Robin plus this or that. That's why Robin Williams was always on. It used to annoy the hell out of me at first because he wouldn't ever let other people have a moment in the sun. He just had to keep injecting himself into interviews. He'd be on the Carson show, for example. He'd do his bit. He'd be brilliant. Then he'd go to the next seat down. Somebody else would come in. He'd keep leaping into that, just keep getting the attention on him. I just wanted to smack him sometimes. But then it's like, no, this is all he knows how to do. He had to be Robin plus. And he seems to have been one of the most lovable people that I've ever experienced from a distance. Seemed to be thoughtful and kind and not a particularly nasty guy. Keanu Reeves is not like Robin Williams, but Keanu Reeves is just nothing but generous and kind and subdued. I don't think he's got a problem at all. Keanu Reeves strikes me as an extremely well-adjusted person. But it's the 12-step program, back to the whole religious thing and mental health thing. The 12-step program is designed to get you out of the equation. Some people have criticized the 12-step programs as it's saying, oh, so it's not really your fault. It's like, well, yes and no. What it's saying, what the 12-step program says is look, for whatever reason you're broken, and you can't fix this on your own. If you could, you wouldn't be broken. If you could fix it on your own, you'd be a social drinker just like social drinkers. You wouldn't be drinking Listerine, or you wouldn't be taking your cat's pain medication. But you are, so you can't do this. And so the next step after admitting that you've got this problem, that you're powerless over the problem, the next step is you surrender. You stop fighting. You say, I can't do this. It's not like, I can't deal with it anymore. It's like, no, I'm not capable of doing it. It's not working. And especially early on, when people come into these rooms, you'll see people will suddenly get the message, and then maybe they'll slip or they'll relapse or whatever, and then they'll get kind of defiant, like, why am I here? I've got this, and I can do this, and I can do this. And every time I'd hear that, or anytime anybody else would hear it, they say, well, if you got everything figured out, what are you doing in this room with the rest of us losers? I spent probably 18 months every night sitting in a back room at a church with really bad fluorescent lighting and a circle of folding chairs, just sitting around in a circle looking at other desperate, sad people, and trying to figure a way to survive this thing. And it was probably the best single thing that happened to me, aside from getting married, obviously. But if I hadn't been in those rooms, I wouldn't have been married. That's for certainly not to this person anyway. But again and again and again, I keep coming back to this. They don't say God, they say higher power, because you're dealing with people who would run away at the thought of God. But what it is God. Thank you, John, for that super chat. What the 12-step program says is, I am turning my life over to a higher power. That I don't have to fight this fight anymore. That someone or something more powerful than I am is fighting this fight for me. And I was a materialist atheist at the time, and I said, well, I don't believe in a higher power. So there. And I wasn't the only one. A lot of people with that. A lot of people. I don't believe in higher power. Really? A sponsor said, Kevin, I never knew his last name, saved my life, this guy. And a couple of my friends said, you don't believe in a higher power? I said, nope. I said, anything in the world more powerful than you are, Bill? That one got my attention, You're it? You're the ultimate power in the universe, are you? Well, no. I said, well, what's more powerful than you are, Bill? I said, well, I don't know. I don't know. Is the ocean more powerful than you? You think you could stand up against the waves forever? No. Well, then let the waves be your higher power for a while, okay? That's fine. Just say the ocean's your higher power. That'll work for a while. Just keep coming back. Keep coming back. Don't give up. Keep coming back here. Come back here, bring all your problems here. We'll talk about them together, and you can hear my problems too, and that's basically how it worked. And so I stuck around. Now, some people would get up and say, I owe my recovery to a higher power, and whose name is God, because that's what he's called. Okay, that's up for you. But if they had said God or Jesus, they would have lost most of the people that needed to be there. And so they snuck them into, they brought them into religious thinking through the back door. But everything that they accomplished was what religious people get to experience every day. How many times have you, if you're a religious person, if you're a Christian, for example, how many times have you looked at the ruin out there in the world and all of the conflict and all of the danger and all of the destruction that's going on, and just said, it's out of my hands. Jesus is Lord, or God's in control, or whatever. Atheists don't have that, and atheists who don't have a core of certainty that things will work out are desperately scared people. I think that's a pretty good word, actually, a pretty good description, rather, a pretty good phrase. Desperately scared people. I was desperately scared. And I'm still desperately scared. I'm never healed. I'm never going to be normal. I'm never going to just know that things are going to be okay. I've just developed coping mechanisms, like, you're sure you're going to hit the ground here. You're sure you're going to get smacked in the face, and you're going to end up living on the street, and you're going to lose everything, and so on and so on and so on, because of all of these crises and all of these problems. And I've just learned over time to say, well, you've thought that pretty much your whole life, and every single time you've managed to come through. That's evidence that that's your diseased mind talking. So ignore it if you can, and try to have faith. And over time it works, but it doesn't come naturally. And I'm very envious of people. Very envious. Envious is probably not the right word. That's a little more negative than I thought. And covetousness is, I'm just, yeah, envious, not jealous. I'm envious of people who didn't have to go through that. But if I hadn't gone through it, I wouldn't be here. So, you know, there you go. I have come to be I've come to be a believer so slowly. I can't tell you when it happened, or even certainly the deal's not closed. I mean, it's an ongoing process. But let me see how I want to phrase this here. Well, I don't know. I don't know if I can. I don't even know if I can put into words here, really, to be honest with you. No, I just, you know, just have just gotten used to believing that things were going to be okay just through experience. As Fendi says, case in point, what happened this weekend. Yeah, now as the details come out, it turns out that Trump had just turned his head, and if he hadn't turned his head, that bullet would have gone into the back of his head. Is that chance? Of course it's possible it's chance. But it's also extremely unlikely. And I'm getting suspicious of how unlikely things are. That's really where I am right now, you know, I think is that my rational mind, my reason is constantly assaulted by how much unlikely stuff I'm being expected to believe in. Don't forget that baptism is necessary, Bill. Well, Stubb, you'll be pleased to know I was baptized as a child. I was baptized in Church of England, and all of my brothers and sisters, we were all baptized. We all have godparents, and that would be Anglican denomination here in America. But yeah. Anyway, I know it's not done by good deeds. I had an experience a couple days ago where I was. The reason we let the bloody stream went on was a 24-hour stream on YouTube was because I was in such a hurry to go get my cat. I forgot to turn off the stream on the YouTube thing. But I picked him up, and he's doing great. And he was my friend before I got married, and got me through some tough times, and so did Pismo, who's been gone for 3 years now, I guess, something like that. I miss very much. But I was feeding Bean. He came back from the vet. He's all shaved, and now he looks like a little lion. So he's Lion Bean now for a while. And I was looking down at Lion Bean, and I just given him his second diabetes shot of the day, and I just realized I hadn't thanked God for him, because he had this big mass on an x-ray, and I thought for sure it was cancer. I thought he had, another 2 weeks, 3 weeks to go, and turned out he just has an enlarged liver. He's just fine. Doctor said he's doing just fine. And I was turning back to the kitchen, and I just realized, I hadn't been very thankful about that gift. So I just basically got down on my knees in the kitchen there, right next to the kitchen sink, and I just closed my eyes, and I thanked God for the deliverance of my little friend, And I don't know if that message got through to anybody, or whether there was anybody to hear it, but I do know that I felt better about myself, and that I felt happier, because I believe that more and more every day that there is, in fact, somebody who's running this show, and I was embarrassed and ashamed that I had neglected to thank that person. I'll just wrap this whole question up with this. Of all the many things that I heard that made so much sense to me in these 12-step programs, the one that is most clearly foremost in my mind all the time is they would say to us, you cannot be grateful and unhappy at the same time. And it is really true. Staub Sauger, whose name we haven't seen before, but who's pitching, batting 1,000 here, says, I love the U.S. celebration of Thanksgiving as a foreigner. I got to tell you, Staub, I don't know if you've visited the United States, but if you do, please come in November. And if you think it looks good from the outside, you have no idea what it's like on the inside. My favorite holiday by far. And I have a big family, and we've had a lot of disagreements. And I'm not saying it's 100% this way, but generally speaking, when liberals and conservatives get together for Thanksgiving, the conservatives seem to be able to shut up and not talk about it, but the liberals don't seem able to do that. They just got to poke you. And so I haven't been going to family reunions for Thanksgiving for 7 or 8 years now. That may change. I talked to my extremely liberal cousin, and she said, look, we really miss seeing you, and so I'll probably go back and we'll give it a try, but I'm not 100% convinced that their 20-year-old kids are going to give it up. I've talked about this many times before. I don't really want to get into it, but came to a point where it was like, I'm just getting poked and poked and poked, so I can either eat it or I can fire back, and if I fire back, I'm going to blow their heads off because this is what I do for a living, or I can just not put myself in that situation, and I've been going with number 3. Hey, here's a super chat from Dante2K. Thinking of Michael Medved's American History Talks, where he points out that the many interventions by God and Providence that saved us from ruin, I believe that we're living through a very similar time today. Well, the details of that assassination attempt are unlikely, and unlikely things happen. But you do have to start asking yourself a question at some point: how improbable am I expected to go with this? So anyway, back we go. We're going to do all these questions today, by golly. Marisha Dark is a big one. David Newland, Jacob Belchek, Janie Waterman, Steve Whoop. Oh, Steve Whoop has moved to Thursday, so. Okay, Marisha Dark, topic, words. And we got a bunch of... Bill, I know you understand the value of rhetorical intelligence and the idea that it's not so much what you say, but how you say it that's important. We both know that words matter, legally, morally, and perhaps even spiritually. I agree with you with what you said on Saturday's stream about how we must preserve free speech and individual responsibility. Even if we don't ultimately have free will, we still have to act as though we do in order to maintain law and order. I believe that we do, but that's just a disagreement among friends, so there you go. Since people don't know how to behave otherwise, it would remain a useful fiction. That said, having listened to Scott Adams speak on this subject for a number of years, my confidence and certainty in the idea of free will and the idea that words can never hurt me, I didn't say that words can never hurt you, isn't true. Of course words can hurt you, has been, let's just say, diminished over time. In many of his streams, he uses his background as a writer and a trained hypnotist to explain a lot of the technical and scientific details behind verbal influence and the way in which language can literally program human minds in a way that is causable, provable, arguably even criminal in some cases. Couldn't agree more. Certainly, from your work on Empire of Terror, you know the power words have when issued by people like Lenin, whose writings also include just free speech, right? I don't know if I understand that sentence. Oh, yes. Does Lenin have the right to be Lenin? Yes, he does have the right to be Lenin. And does he have the right to publish what he believes? Yes, he has that right. And is it the most destructive stuff in the history of the world? Yes, it's killed 100 million to 200 million people. That free speech that Lenin had is responsible for 200 million dead. Should we have shut Lenin up? No. And this is the trap. This is why we don't live in a perfect world. The problem with that is somebody has to decide. Some human being has to decide what gets said and what doesn't get said. And that is a bigger danger than what comes out of the mouth of tyrants and bullies and idiots and murderers. It's a bigger threat. It's not a unique disadvantage. The world consists of, sometimes you're lucky, you have a good choice and a bad choice, but usually you have a choice between something that's bad and something that's worse. Free speech provides, free speech can generate a great deal of harm, especially the speech of people like Lenin. It'd be nice if you could just shut Lenin up or send him off to someplace, but who decides? And if you give somebody the power to decide, that's going to cause more trouble in the long run than Lenin does. So yes, Lenin gets to be Lenin. Yes, Lenin gets to speak whatever he wants to. Lenin gets to print his papers, and so does Hitler, and so do all the rest of them. And all the damage that flows from these demented minds and all the people that follow these demented philosophies, yes, it's a catastrophe and it's a horror. All of that is true. But those dangers are minuscule compared to the dangers of, not only the dangers of having somebody censor what somebody else is saying, but they also become trivial compared to what you lose as a society if you have to guard what you think. Because guarding what you say is not possible. What you find from societies like the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany and Communist China is you can't guard what you say. You will slip. So what people do is they don't guard what they say, they guard what they think. And then you've created the perfect hell where people can't even think about things because they know the connection. I cannot think negative thoughts about Comrade Stalin because he murdered my entire family. So if I think negative things about him, I will slip up. I'll say it in my sleep. I'll get drunk. I'll mention something in passing. So I love Big Brother. I love him. I love Big Brother. I love Big Brother with all my heart. And that's how everybody suddenly gets into the Emperor's New Clothes parade, and everybody is sending out other signals that everybody loves Big Brother. So yes, he gets to talk. Back to the question. Again, at the end of the day, I agree with you that we must hold the individual actor responsible for their actions, but I do think we should be doing more against the people and environments that created them. Yes, I couldn't agree more. There's been a lot of pushback against the Democrats' rhetoric, and I suspect now they will have to tone it down. And yes, did they influence this kid to pull this trigger? There's no question that they did. He's a threat to the democracy. If Donald Trump is elected, it is the end of the country. It is the end of democracy. It's the end of freedom. This is the rhetoric that they use. We don't use that kind of rhetoric against Joe Biden. We say that Joe Biden is incompetent. We say he's corrupt. We say that he's not the president of the United States. But we don't say that Joe Biden is the end of the country. We say Joe Biden's policies are the end of the country. And there's a very, very, very big difference between those two things. So, let's see. So as I said in the Indomitable segment, if the rhetoric from the Democrats and the media is responsible for pulling that trigger, if it's their fault legally, not did they influence him, of course they influenced him, but are they responsible? In other words, is Robert De Niro responsible, or Joy Behar responsible, or Whoopi Goldberg responsible? No, they're not responsible. They are expressing their loathsome opinions. And if you take the responsibility away from the shooter and put it anywhere else, then you've not only lost freedom of speech, you've also lost individual responsibility. And those are the two pillars of our free society. I'm not giving any one of them up. So this is the same kind of stuff you have to eat when you watch O.J. Simpson go free. Did he murder those people? Of course he murdered those people. Did they prove it? No. Should they have proven it? Of course. It was a slam dunk, but they botched it. And so this murderer goes free for all these years. Okay. It sucks. It's injustice, but it's not as bad as the alternative, which is putting innocent people in jail because the bar is lower. Bad choice, worse choice. And this is why our country's so miraculous. It's not because it's perfect. Obviously, it's not that the United States is the best place in the world. It's the least bad place. There's more on the positive side and less on the negative side. The scales are out of balance towards the good more than any other place in the world. There are monstrous problems with living in this country, but benefits outweigh them. That was my feeling when I went to Norway, which was the most ordered, polite, decent. I didn't see any immigrants in Norway. I didn't have to deal with any of that. But Norway was just so beautifully maintained, and the trains were so, and everybody was so healthy and so fit, and all of that. And I remember thinking, this is like a game preserve for humans. No big ups, no big downs. And some people prefer that. I personally don't. I like being where the action is. Personally, that's me. Jacob Bitchuk, Hell, Bill. What are your thoughts on hell? I don't. When you say hell, hell is a place. I'm gonna take you at the literal hell. I mean, obviously, hell is, Did I read the last line of his question? Let me see. Did I miss the last line? Oh, I did miss the last line of your question. Would I consider arranging to talk with Scott Adams? I'd love to talk with Scott Adams. I'd love to talk with him. I am an enormous fan of his. And I would be delighted to talk with Scott Adams. I think we'd have ourselves a marvelous conversation. So yes, make it so. Dave Newland. I missed one. I'll be right back to you there, Jacob. Hey, Bill, found an excellent video clip just over 2 minutes in length, and here's the YouTube link, of Leonard Nimoy, probably made in the late 60s or early 70s, entitled Leonard Nimoy Explains What's Wrong with Star Trek Discovery. Made in the 60s or 70s. It just solidifies why the original series is the only real Star Trek, amen. And more than that, how well-written stories can advance the culture rather than revel in the worst of it. I'd love to get your opinion on it. Here's the link. I saw it, but I saw it, but I didn't watch it. And I can't watch it now. But I'm looking forward to it. Nimoy one. Mr. Spock. And there's only one Mr. Spock. So I will check that out as soon as we end this show, and thank you very much for posting that for us here. Jacob Belchick, what are your thoughts on hell, Bill? This is going to be a little controversial, I suspect, but this is just since you asked. Let's say you took a father who lost all of his children to the Nazis, and he managed to survive, and he saw them shot right in front of their eyes, and that's a rather sanitary way of saying it. He saw them shot. And so let's say this guy's got a son and 3 daughters and his wife, and he saw them lined up in front of a pit and shot. They were shot. No. He saw the bullet enter the back of their head and the front of their head explode, and their brains go out all over the pit and fall down like rag dolls and stare their glassy eyes up in the sky. Let's just make this as horrible as it possibly can be, because that's what the horror is really like in the real world. Oh, you just watch them get shot. It's like, bang. Ooh, no. Saw the stuff that just turn your brain to jelly. So let's say that man was there, and then imagine that man had Adolf Hitler and the SS soldiers and Eichmann and all the rest of them on a rope or a chain over a pot of boiling oil, and he dunks him into the boiling oil. And imagine the satisfaction of that. And they're writhing in agony. And just the sheer joy of that. How long do you think that human man would endure that before he cranked him back out again? Because I maintain that there's not a person with a conscience alive that would allow that to go on forever without at some point saying, okay, that's enough. I'm not talking about high-level forgiveness now. I'm not talking about the kind of people who can face the person that murdered their daughter and say, I forgive you. And those people are genuinely exceptional because they understand the trap that a lifetime of hate is. But just for the sake of the argument, let's say that you had the strongest possible reason to want somebody to suffer forever. Forever. How much suffering of theirs would you endure? Forget the boiling oil. That's easy to see people disappear in bubbles. Let's say you put hooks into them and you're peeling their skin off and they're screaming and writhing in agony and you're enjoying every second of it. And this goes on and on and on and on and on, and it goes on every day. How long could you watch that without saying that's enough? I feel the point I'm trying to make here is that the kind of people who get into heaven could not watch people suffer in hell forever. They might get a good 20 minutes out of it, but they couldn't do it forever. And I think that probably the most, I don't believe there's a place of eternal punishment. I think that the worst thing that, and likewise, I don't think that Adolf Hitler has earned his forgiveness and walks with the rest of people in heaven. I think that what happens to people who fail that, and you have to fail that test pretty hard, but to cross the line, to be irredeemable, I think, just from the logic of emotion, from the logic of emotion, that the answer for them is oblivion. Is that just oblivion? They're gone. They're not here anymore. We don't want them in our afterlife, and we don't and we don't care to see them, and we get nothing out of them being perpetually in turmoil. That's how I look at it. Now, Dave Big Booty says, if there really is no hell, then what's the point of heaven? See, I think hell is the definition of hell is anything outside of the gate. Right? That's what I think. I think anything that's outside the gate is hell. If there's an afterlife, if you're not inside the gate, then everything outside the gate is hell. I don't think you necessarily need lakes of fire or being stuck with pitchforks. Eric Blake is basically saying what I'm just saying. It's separation from God. That's the definition of hell. That's the classic definition of hell. I don't know the answers to these things. I just remember thinking, how angry could I be at somebody so that I wanted to see them tortured forever? And I could imagine being angry enough at somebody to want to see them tortured for quite a long time. But I don't know if I can imagine a point when I wouldn't say, okay, that's enough, I don't know. I don't. I don't know the answer to these things. I don't presume to know the answer to these things. It's arrogant for me to even attempt to answer the question, but we are thinking people, and we have been given the gift of reason, so we have, there you go. I look at, and then I want to be clear that I'm talking about reducing the stakes in this discussion by several orders of magnitude. But when I look at these social justice warriors, I think that they're living in a kind of hell. Because I have never seen one of these SJWs who strikes me as happy or content in any way. They're in a state of perpetual enragement and perpetually indignant, and they're never satisfied, and they never have fun. They don't have any senses of humor that I can see. They don't have friends so much as comrades. And I feel like they are in a state of kind of a hell, where they're just miserable all the time. And I'll tell you who else fits into this category is a somewhat older version of these people, and that's the Karens. You look at these Karens who are like constantly demanding to speak to the manager, and nobody speaks to them that way, and they have been disrespected, and they will get there. And it's like, how miserable do you have to be, lady? How miserable do you have to be to have the only purpose of you stepping out of the house for the day is to find something that you can then go and make other people miserable over? Yeah, it's hell. Roger Ramsey 59 said, hell of their own making. It is a hell of their own making. So, I don't know. It may in fact be a burning lake of sulfurous fire, and the people who deserve to be in there are the people who deserve to be in there. But I don't believe that you need to have a hell in order to have a heaven. I just think that the idea that everybody gets to heaven is nonsense. If everybody got to heaven, then that would be hell. All I have to say about this is I'm just going to quote Mark Twain, who had the best ever description about this, and I'm just going to quote him because I think this is as Mark Twain ever got, and this is my philosophy about heaven and hell. Well, if you've got a choice between heaven and hell, take heaven for the climate and hell for the company. That's about the best I can do with that one. I'm afraid it's above my pay grade. Hi, Bill. Do we really have to wait to Thursday for a political question? Yes, you kind of do. Can't be live tonight, so I'll check with you later. But if you skip me, skip me. Speaker Johnson listed all of Trump's children as the members of what sounded like the Esquire Committee to the president. Do you know what that is and what the committee does or traditionally did? I don't have any idea what that is. All I know is that the term Esquire is a fairly archaic term meaning it's roughly equivalent to sire. It means essentially means the lord of the manor, the lord of the household, the patriarch. So, I don't think I can make much sense out of that one, Janie. To be perfectly honest with you. Speaker Johnson listed all of Trump's children as the members of what sounded like Esquire Committee to the president. I'm afraid that one is just incomprehensible to me. So there you go. Anyway, heated discussion going on in the YouTube comment section, but I haven't been able to follow it because if I do, I just lose my train of thought, and I do that often enough as it is anyway. All right, so I don't know what my schedule with Oshkosh is going to be. I think it is the 22nd through the 27th, which would take out next Monday. So either I'll show it the following Monday or whatever the case may be. Yeah. Anyway, so we get the idea. Oh, and we did the PragerU thing, and it turned out very well, and that was a lot of fun, and they had a lot of fun with me, and hopefully we'll go back and do some more for them. But that was really quite a kick. So there's that. Looking forward to seeing that soon. Esquire just means you have a JD, a Doctor of Jurisprudence, I suppose. Oh well, whatever. I don't have one. Yeah, I'm going to leave that alone. I don't need that right now. Okay, well, anyway, guess what? This show's made possible by the members of BillWhittle.com, who keep the ball rolling, the lights turning, and who keep the net intact somehow over all the course of these many years. Dave Big Booty says, can't wait to see you at Oshkosh. Bill, I'll be the white guy in the red shirt. Dave, if you're going to be there, you got to come and find me. I will certainly be at all of Bert Rutan's speeches. I'm virtually positive I'll be at all of his. I think he's doing 4 or 5 different seminars or lectures or whatever during the course of Oshkosh. But we're getting in at 5 o'clock, I want to say, on the first day, and the Dick Rutan Memorial is the night of the first night, so that's where you'll find me, and you better come up and say hi. By God, it's been a long time. So the show made possible. Yeah, come on, man, the thing. The show's made possible by the members of BillWhittle.com who keep us going and keep me going, and it's a pleasure to sit and talk with. I learned so much from you folks. We'll see you Thursday, and I guess by Thursday we'll know whether we'll see you Monday or what we'll do in advance. Maybe I'll have the thing edited by Thursday. In fact, if I put a little work into it, maybe we can do that. So we'll see where it goes from there. All right, so let's say goodnight to YouTube, and this time I don't have to go pick up my cat, so as I go to the Stratosphere Studio screen, I will then stop the stream, and we won't have a 15-hour stream, and I know that's disappointing for many people who sat there watching the banner in silence for as long as they did, but you probably should get out of the house more often, get out and touch some grass. So YouTube, we will see you